Hosted in conjunction with Chris Media, the CEO interview series allows investors to hear directly from the CEOs leading the companies featured on Wholesale Investor. Enjoy the interview and reach out via the details in the description.
Hi and welcome to another Crisp TV Q&A. Today I'm joined by the founder of My Property Solutions Sydney, Delwyn Sela. Thank you for joining me, Delwyn.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Amazing. Now, just to get started, could you give us a high-level overview of My Property Solutions and your value proposition to the market?
Yeah, sure. My Property Solutions, or MPSS as we like to say, is a property management company that we've restructured for the purpose of scale-based growth. So we do normal functions that go with managing a client's property, collecting rent, organising for tenants to vacate, come in, move on as the case may be, and then we remit that rent to the owner while making sure we conform to the rules and regulations under the Landlords and Tenants Act that applies in Sydney and throughout New South Wales.
Perfect. Now, let us break this down a little. Could you tell us about the problem that you identified in the market and the solution that you came up with?
Yeah, so fundamentally what's happening in the world of real estate is we seem to be going in different directions. There's one group that's very focused on sales, and the selling of property is kind of glamorous, it's kind of sexy, and people like to talk about it, and that occupies a lot of time in dining rooms and all the rest of it. But it's a very different process to that of managing property, because managing property is a systematic thing that you do have to conform to legislation, and you have to have great systems in place and great people to deliver that concept of consistent service. So you've got this transactional process, and then you've got this systems, priorities, driven by rent and collections.
Absolutely. Now, let us talk about how did you transition, from the property investment side of things to this amazing investment opportunity that, we're talking about here today?
Yeah, so our business has been in operation for more than a decade and a half, but that's in traditional real estate. And the issue with that is that it's not growing at the pace that we wanted it to, and we want to scale that business up. So the best way to do that was basically break it down and start again. So 2 years ago, we made that decision. We moved the business from a location that it had always existed in to a new location. We structured it so that it would be better for advertising and promotion, and that's already had an impact. And then we had to look ahead in that same context to make sure that it fulfilled obligations that we wanted done, because technology is changing the way real estate goes out into the marketplace these days. So the old way, establish an office in all these different suburbs, promote your brand, bring in as many sales as you can, we see that model dissipating to a central process that can be expanded infinitely with service provision that's consistent and will encompass sales as well as a bigger focus on property management.
Amazing. Now, for my next question, I want to ask that, can you take us through the journey of an investor that decides to come on board? So can you talk to us, like explaining us from the beginning to the end, how would their journey look like, the visibility that they will have, the relations that they will develop with the team?
Yeah, okay. So again, we thought it was best to look at this in a different way. And what we've come up with is a process where an investor gets involved with our business and gets a consistent rate of return on their investment. And they have a defined exit period, which is at the end of 2 years. Now, at that point, they've had a great opportunity to learn about us, we've had a good opportunity to learn about them, and they may choose to exit. And that's okay, we can live with that. But there's another option, is that they may convert that investment. Now, there are some conditions to this, but they may convert that investment to an actual real property. All right, and thereby get a foothold into the Australian real estate market. And obviously we've got conditions around that process, but that property is at a wholesale price, which represents a 40% discount on today's values. So there's an opportunity for the investor to convert their investment in us into a real asset that's already got some capital gain behind it. We think that's unique, we think it's different, and we're hopeful that it appeals to the market.
Absolutely. Now let us talk about that. Do you have any notable clients and partnerships that you can shed some light on, or even the milestones that you have achieved so far that would allude to future success?
Yeah, so the client question is not so easy for me to answer because we're dealing with everyday people, who have a property that they've invested in. It's of significant value to them, and they're focused on how do they get the best return and result for their investment. So they're not necessarily celebrities and things along those lines. But probably the milestone that I think is significant is that we've tested the system. So the way that we want to scale up our business is to acquire other property management businesses, add them into our own income stream, and then build that up. So we've tested that. We've gone out and over the last couple of years purchased 2 small rent rolls. That's the industry term. That's added about 40, 50 managements. So it's given us that opportunity to say, yes, we can handle that process and make sure our systems actually work in application, as opposed to a theoretical, this should be okay.
Makes sense. Now, it definitely sounds like with everything you've shared that, the foundations have been laid for the growth of the venture, and we can definitely see scaling of the venture. So now let us talk about one of the most important aspects of a business, which is the team, which, the team which is behind all the success of MPSS. So can you tell us about the skill set that they have and what do they bring to the table?
Yeah, so looking at that from the provision of property management and service, the leader of our team, our CEO, has been with the business literally from its inception. So she knows all the clients, she knows the systems, she runs the account processes, and she's in that coalface day to day of dealing with people. All right. Now that expertise has been developed over 15 years. So she heads up our team and provides the expertise back to those people we have in property management, so that when they get a question from an owner that's a little difficult or they don't necessarily know, the expertise flows back through in service to the client. To make that process even a bit more succinct, we brought in place a lady called Sky Nichols, who's also had more than 2 decades of experience in property management to lead the actual property management team. And then there's another colleague of mine called Anella Falvo, and she handles sales and organic growth of the business. So she goes and talks to the client base because many clients have additional properties and we don't necessarily manage those, so we want to try and pick up that opportunity as well.
Yeah.
All right. So it's kind of, get that organic growth there, make sure that that's consistent, deliver that consistent expertise, and then scale up the business by finding those rent roll opportunities. And we've identified 2 of those that we think, if brought on correctly, will double the income of the business in the next 6 months.
Excellent. Now, this will be my last question for today, Delwyn. I want to know, what should excite investors in the journey of MPSS moving forward? So what does the strategic outlook look like over the next 6 to 12 months?
Yeah, so strategically, double the income. So we've entered into a contract in one particular case, and we've got an expression of interest on the second rent roll we'd like to acquire. That second rent roll also brings with it a distribution network of agents that have been contracted back to that firm, which means that we can promote out wider property management services throughout Sydney. So that's an important move for us, and that significantly changes the way the business can operate into the future and gives us that scale we're looking for, because the expenses of running the business are pretty much contained already within the existing flow. So investor capital is used to buy income and grow the business as opposed to establish the business. So we think that's a pretty different sort of, approach than we normally see. And maybe one final comment. I think the advantage to investors is the opportunity to work with us over that couple of years. If it's everything that we say it is, I'm sure they'll want to stay and take further opportunity. And if it isn't, we recognise that they may want to exit, and we've planned it that way so that investors get that choice, not us.
Amazing. Well, again, thank you so much for sharing your insights about the journey at MPSS so far. And for the viewers watching this interview, there are going to be details at the side of the screen and even in the description. So please feel free to reach out to Delwyn and his team on CRISP or on their website. Well, thank you so much again, Delwyn, for joining me in an interview.
Thank you for your time, and again, appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.